Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this month's webinar. I'm just going to tweak a couple things here. There we go. Great. My name is Jay Berkowitz, and we're going to do a couple fun things here today. We're going to talk about clicks to conversions, how to get those pesky Google visitors to click, come to your website, and sign up and become a customer. And we're going to touch on a couple things, and we're also going to do a fun live drawing. So let me pull up my slides here, share my screen. There we go. So today's content, of course, is clicks to conversions, winning strategies for Google, PPC, and local service ads. I'm going to talk about how to rank in the top 3, to talk about bid testing strategies, and how to convert. Of course, conversion's super important. Why is this so valuable? Well, early in my career, I remember I read about John Wanamaker, who said, I know half my advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. And he owned department stores around the early 1900s. And early in my career, we knew that that was true. And I worked on McDonald's restaurants advertising. I was a director of marketing at McDonald's. I also worked at Coca-Cola. And that was always a frustration for the franchisees because we would spend all this money on advertising, but we definitely knew it worked. Like when we put a new Happy Meal ad up, and these are some Happy Meal toys, we would always put the ads up Thursday night at 6 o'clock. And by Friday, if there was a hot new Happy Meal toy, the stores were packed. And our comp sales, we always talked about comparable sales, would always be up like 10, 20, 30% when we had a great new product. So advertising works. Like instantly, we could get people visiting the McDonald's stores. But later in my career, I discovered direct marketing and then internet marketing. And I loved it because we could measure the ROI, the return on investment, to the penny. Because with the traditional advertising, we didn't know what worked. We knew advertising worked, but we didn't know, was it the TV commercial? Was it the billboards? Was it the radio ads that started on Thursday at 6 o'clock that filled the stores? And the franchisees would always be saying, like, can we save the money on the billboards and just do the TV and radio or one of the other combinations? And we could never, really measure it to the penny like we can with internet marketing. So this is a campaign, and we'll be looking at this in detail in a minute. But this was one of our clients, spent $3,000 in a month. We're always talking monthly for the most part. They got 71 leads. And of course, we're eventually going to also talk about signed clients. But they got 71 leads, and the cost per lead was $42.81, which is really, really great. This is a smaller market. Most of the bigger markets are a lot more expensive. So the beauty of this is we can track the different campaigns. We can track the different, the spend and the ads and the different testing that we're doing. And we'll go through all that in a minute. But the beauty of this is that we can track our results to the penny. So this is what a typical Google search looks like these days. And we're going to talk about principally the two paid areas of Google: the Google screened local service ads, or the LSAs, and the pay per click, which typically come up at the top of the page. And then you'll see the Google Maps, and then down below is the SEO. And if you want to delve deeply into those things, we have other webinars on our YouTube channel that talk about those things. But today we're talking principally about the paid stuff. So first up, we're going to talk about the Google Screen Local Service Ads, the LSAs. And these are pay-per-click instances, or pay-per-lead instances. And the vast majority of these happen on cell phones, and they actually call your firm. And we love those because, number one, they're right at the very top of Google. On a desktop, they look like this. And the majority of them are phone calls. And phone calls generally convert much better than form fills. Like if somebody does a pay-per-click, if they click here and go to your website, those clicks, the form fills on your website, maybe 5% of people will fill out a form on your website. And we all know that when you call those people, they're really hard to get a hold of. So if someone clicks here and calls you, you're speaking to them right there. And typically 1 in 5, 1 in 6 of those people are going to sign up. So we love this position. We love the Google screened LSAs. And, people always ask me, does it really work? And this is an example of one of our clients that went from spending 18 or 20,000 a month, got up to 30,000 a month, and signed 30 cases in a month. The average cost per case was around $1,200. And I'll show you several examples where this stuff really works if you do it right, and we'll talk about how to do it right. The other thing we'll spend a little bit of time on today is the Google AI overviews. And this is a brand new thing that just started showing up last year in search. And this is essentially Google's attempt to prevent the people from going to Chat GPT. And it actually works really well. Google calls their GPT product Google Gemini, or what we see as a consumer is AI overview. So here's a search for how do I choose a car accident attorney? And we see that Google's compiled an answer. So this is not a website. This is Google's answer. Google's compiled an answer here, and they're actually using other websites to compile that answer. So these are links. And so this is a new SEO opportunity. Again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on SEO, but really this is the brand new SEO that we're talking a lot about in 2025. And we'll have a lot more content coming out on the Google AI overviews. One other quick mini case study. Today, we're going to be talking about conversion. And this is my friend and client, Jeff McDonald's website. And here's his old website. He had 467 calls. And here's his new website in the same time period, like in a basically a 3-month time period, he had 1,290 calls. And the biggest change we made on that website, you can see here, is we took the form off the top of the page and we really focused on the phone number, because you want phone calls. And like I said before, phone calls work much better than forms to A, convert clients, and B, talk to clients and get in touch with them. And you see here the dramatic increase in phone calls as we go through the months. Now, I've told you we're going to do something fun, and we're going to get into the content and get deep on this stuff in just a minute. But we attended the National Trial Lawyers, the big summit in a couple weeks ago in Miami, and we had this banner in our booth, and we promised to give away a YSL crossbody bag or a Toomey laptop. A lot of people didn't see the little asterisk there. So if you win and you don't want to give the YSL bag to someone, you can pick the Toomey laptop. So we're going to do this live, and hopefully technology is my friend here. It never is. Like, you should never do this live. And so everybody who entered in our booth is on this spinning wheel. And if you're here, good luck. And supposedly I just have to click to spin, and we're going to pick our winner live here today on the call. Good luck to everyone. All right. Congratulations. We have a winner. It's probably Jorge Fonte. I'll probably get that wrong, but congratulations. And we'll be getting in touch with you. Or if you're here, let us know. Just put a comment in the chat, and congratulations. Okay, so here's where we are, and back to today's information. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be going through how to rank in the top 3, new bid and testing strategies, some cutting edge conversion strategies. And first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and 10 golden rules. So once again, I'm Jay Berkowitz. I've written, this is my 5th book coming out shortly. It's with the editor. And these 2 books were Amazon bestsellers. But my company started, I worked, as I mentioned, for McDonald's and Coca-Cola doing traditional marketing. And then I worked for a company called ediets.com doing online marketing. And at that time, I wrote the book, The 10 Golden Rules of Online Marketing. And that's why our company is called 10 Golden Rules. And in the last 5 years or so, we only work with attorneys. So we do internet marketing for law firms. As you can see on our YouTube channel, it says 10 Golden Rules, Internet Marketing for Law Firms. That's pretty clear, huh? And we do one of these webinars every month. And so if you want to go back and see additional content, you can go to our YouTube channel and you can see some of the content I mentioned earlier. This is on technology tips, local search, the Google Maps. This is a case study with Brian Garrett, ChatGPT All-Stars, obviously technology. We do an annual planning webinar. I don't know why the 2023 planning webinar is the most popular, but there is a 2025 planning webinar. So if you're watching this current and you haven't done your business plans, I encourage you to go watch that webinar and write your 2025 business and marketing plans. Here's some new websites that we've worked on and some clients we've worked on. And one thing I want to spend 1 minute on, and then we'll get into today's content. This is our TGR Live. This is our live event. We do it every year. It's an awesome event. And Mike Morris, who has a $200 million law firm in Michigan, is going to be speaking. He wrote a great book called Fireproof about how to build your marketing and your law firm and fireproof your law firm. Jeff McDonald and Darren Stewart, two of our clients, and many of our clients are going to be doing case studies. And they're going to really show you the good stuff. They're going to show you how we really transformed their marketing and brought in more leads and more cases. The technology section is going to be really cutting edge. Andy Sievers, the case status is the top technology product at Clio this year. Justin Lovely is amazing, is all these AI tips. Ed Kirk from Supio, it's an actual AI you can use to do case management and use it in court and do medical chronologies and stuff like that. Charlie Mann's going to share his $500,000 referral playbook. Jeff Hampton has 18 million YouTube views on his YouTube channel. He's a criminal attorney out of Texas, and he's going to share us his YouTube secrets. So it's going to be, and there's even more stuff. It's right on the ocean at Opal Grand in Delray Beach, Florida. So it's coming up quickly, March 10th and 11th, 2025. If you're watching this sometime in September of 2025, hey, join us for TGR Live 2026. We don't have the dates yet, but we'd love you to join us. I have a special, if y'all can join us, go to 10goldenrules.com/TGRlive-golden. And this is an upgrade to VIP. So if you buy the regular ticket price, we'll sit you in the VIP section with all of our speakers and VIPs. All right, so without further ado, let's get into today's content, clicks to conversions, and we're going to start with the Google screened local service ads. So how do you get to the very top of Google? And the LSAs and figuring out the LSA strategy for your firm is so important because everyone asks their agency and everyone asks Jay and 10 Golden Rules, like, how do I get to the very top of Google? And so the obvious answer is you've got to figure out how to get your piece of the pie in the local service ads, because these ads, for the most part, now Google changes things up all the time, and sometimes they show the LSAs and sometimes they don't. But if you're searching for a personal injury lawyer, if you're searching for a family law attorney near me, even criminal attorneys and even business attorneys, almost every category now has the local service ad showing up, and it's showing up right at the top of the screen. And as I mentioned before, these are pay-per-call instances. So you're paying for a phone call. And most firms are going to convert 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of those phone calls into a signed client. So how do you get to the top of Google? You've got to be in the local service ads. And how do you show up in the local service ads? Well, for that, you need our secret algorithm, and we'll get into that in a minute. As I mentioned before, there's 3 ads showing up in most instances. Now, Google, again, changes it up. Sometimes they'll put a pay-per-click ad in the mix. Like, for example, here you could see a pay-per-click ad, or you could see an LSA or a pay-per-click here in the maps. But for the most part, what we're seeing is 3 results on a phone, 3 results on a screen. And this, I'll spend a minute on this in a second, but they're also putting things like typically replies in 15 minutes, free consultation, free estimate, takes new clients, free consultation. So Google's putting some additional information. So there's a lot of parts to this program now as they've added things over time. So here's some of our clients or people we've consulted with. Phillips Law right at the top of Google, Stewart and Stewart in first position there. Now I mentioned we have our secret algorithm. So if you want to take a quick scan of this, I'll share it again a little bit later, or you can go to 10goldenrules.com/hot-trends, 2 T's, hot trends. And we have a download where you can get our information about the AI overviews of Google's ChatGPT. Our secret algorithms in there. I'm going to take you through it now, but if you want to download it and share it with your team. And we also have some strategies for getting listed in Google Maps in our new Hottest Trends for Law Firms handbook. Okay, so here's the secret algorithm. And the first thing you need to know is you have to answer the phone within 15 seconds and no missed calls. Now, this was always super important going back to before local service ads. Obviously, if you don't answer the phone and someone's doing a Google search and they try to call your law firm and it goes to a voicemail, or it rings and rings, the receptionist is out on a break, they're going to call another law firm. So that this was always mission impossible, mission number one, mission critical for your law firm. But now with the local service ads, they're timing you. If Google shows a local service ad and your firm is shown in the ad and the person clicks and calls you and you don't answer the phone on a regular basis, Google's going to stop showing you in the local service ad. It's pretty simple, right? Like, they want people to have a good experience with Google, and they want to give their customers, Google searchers, a good experience. And so if your firm doesn't quickly answer the phone, and if your firm misses calls, you're not going to show up in the LSAs. You also can't go to an answering machine or a phone tree. So a lot of people have, if you're a new client, press 1. If you're an existing client, press 2. If you're an insurance company, press 3. You don't want to do that with your local service ads. Your local service ads should go directly to, if you're a new client, and put them directly through to someone who can help them with their case. Because as soon as you go to a phone tree, if the people hang up, those are going to count against you in the algorithm. Those are going to stand as missed calls. Now, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Google's added sometimes a response time in these ads. So David Eltringham, a great guy here in South Florida, typically replies in a few minutes. And Rubenstein Law typically replies in 1 day. Now, if you're the average consumer and you were in a car accident and the insurance company's not getting back to you or not satisfying your needs, which happens more often than not, or obviously if you're in any other legal situation and you want to talk to a lawyer, who are you going to call? Someone who typically replies in a few minutes or someone who typically replies in a day? Now, for the most part, this tracking is going to be tied to the messaging. And another element of the local service ad program that I haven't talked about yet is you can, as a consumer now, for the most part, you can click to call or you can click to send a message. And a lot of consumers, particularly younger consumers, they like to chat. So a lot of people are like, yeah, I'd like to message. I don't want to talk to a lawyer. But they'll then use this message feature. And this is something you can turn on or off at your choice in the Google Ads LSA backend, right? Now, there's a couple folks we recommend, Intaker and Juvo Leads. So Intaker is like the chat box on your website. You can see it on 10 Golden Rules if you don't know what I'm talking about, but there's like a video at the start, and then there's an interaction where you can chat. And then Juvo Leads is another one that we recommend. And this one is run mostly by AI. So there's an automated conversation going on, but all they're doing in chat is they're helping the person up. Like, the person's like, hey, were you in an accident? Or are you injured? Are you looking for a family attorney? Whatever type of attorney. And you work with them on the scripting, and the AI is able to answer them very, very quickly. So that's why we like Intaker Chat. And then Juvo Leads actually has real people, but they have a great system where they're very, very quick and very, very responsive. So in either of these cases, both these firms are able to interact with the LSAs. They're able to interact very, very quickly and get you this typically replies in a few minutes. So if you don't have chat on your website, you definitely want to add chat on your website, because that will increase your conversions 10 or 20%. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But if you want to use these message leads and you want to get this typically replies in a few minutes, we recommend those two companies. Okay, so the first part of the secret algorithm is all about answering the calls within 15 seconds, no missed calls. You got to treat it like that, that phone's tied to a bomb, right? The second piece is you want to select the bidding mode and set it to maximize leads. So there's a lot of different options in setting up your budget, but generally what, we work with our clients to figure out, you don't want to set it too high. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just going to set it to $100,000 a week. And the problem is that kind of sets off the algorithm. Like, it doesn't understand. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not going to send that many leads to this firm. This budget's way too high. Or if you set the budget too low, we were talking to a firm earlier who set it to the minimum, and that was like, I don't know, $200 a week. And one phone call is like $200, $250 they're in a big competitive market. So you've got to set it at a nice place, maybe $3,000-4,000 a week. You're not going to spend all that money. I promise you, the first week, the first month, Google's not going to spend all the money. It's not like pay-per-click, but you want to set it high enough that you tell Google, like, hey, let us try this thing out. Give us a try. We promise we'll answer the phone. I'm obviously not having this conversation with anybody. This is all automated. Matter of fact, the program's run by artificial intelligence today. So you're going to set that to maximize leads. And then the second most important thing, the first most important thing is answering the phone quickly, like within 15 seconds, and 24/7 availability. The next thing is you want to designate leads immediately as booked or archived. So you're going to log into the back end of Google's system. It looks kind of like this. It's a little bit updated, but you see this client's doing a great job because they've marked all the leads as either completed. We had a good call with these folks. This was a good lead, or archived, where you can say, this wasn't a very good lead, or this was someone like trying to sell us something. It wasn't a lead at all. And then you can rate the leads. Now you can no longer dispute leads. So there used to be a little button here at the top where you could click and you could dispute and you could explain why you're disputing. Now Google has taken that away from us as advertisers, and you can only rate the call. So you can rate it like on a 5-point scale. But still super important. You want to designate the leads immediately. And then when you go into the back, when you do that, you click on each of these leads, you listen to the recording. Each of these is an actual call. And then you put some notes in there and you give Google feedback, almost like you're doing search engine optimization. So you're going to go in there and you're going to tell Google, this was a great lead. Mrs. Hernandez was in a car accident. She was hit by another car, and she's currently seeing the chiropractor, and she's going to be going to see a neck surgeon, and she's going to be meeting with our attorneys tomorrow at 3:00. And then there's actually a drop down where you can book a meeting tomorrow at 3:00. Now this is like a little secret high value tip that a lot of people don't take advantage of. But this system was originally built like 6 years ago for plumbers and air conditioning guys and garage door repair roofers. It was created in the home services industry. Now, the home services industry has to book a meeting for the plumber to come out and look at your leaking toilet. So there's a terminology called booking a meeting. Now, for the most part, we're going to sign a lot of our clients today with DocuSigns, with digital signups, but you're still going to tell the system, we booked a meeting with Mrs. Hernandez tomorrow at 3:00. So that's kind of an advanced tip that you can do in the system. The next thing in our secret algorithm, again, this is how you get to the top of the local service ads, is you want to get 1 to 2 new reviews per week. So you want to always add Google reviews per location. You want to make sure you're getting 1 to 2 new reviews per week. This is a software called Birdeye that we recommend. It's like you've probably seen it when you went to your doctor and your doctor sent you a survey. He said, on a scale of 1 to 5, how was your experience today with the doctor? So this is a similar kind of thing where they send out a survey, and then when you get those 5-star reviews, they say, hey, can we put this review in Google? And you can add that review to Google. But it gives you a nice, easy software for your paralegals to use. And then the final thing in the secret algorithm is what we call the multi-location strategy. And this is just a screenshot of Morgan & Morgan, the big mega law firm. If you all don't know Morgan, just only because he hasn't come to your market yet, but this is the biggest personal injury firm in the country. And obviously I'm using personal injury today as the example, but this is similar for other practice areas. Why does Morgan & Morgan have 6 locations in Orlando where they have head office, and they probably have a huge building they own, and they could easily house everybody in that one location? And nobody's told me for sure, but I believe they've intentionally added different locations. I've seen one of them, and it was like a small little like office. It looked like it used to be a doctor's office or something, but they put a big sign on it, so it has the billboard effect. But the reason is for LSAs and Google Maps, because this provides proximity to all these people who live 5 or 10 miles in this direction, 5 or 10 miles in this direction, 5 or 10 miles in this direction. So one of the things that we're counseling our clients on is where to open the second and third location. And we look at the geography, we look at how many competing law firms are in that area, and then we'll even look at the breakdown, and you should look at where your cases come from. Because if you're particularly strong in an area and you don't have a location, like if your clients come from one part of the town or one part of the county, that's a great place to add a second location, particularly if it's not like 1,000 competing lawyers in that area. And then the last thing I'll mention today on the LSAs is a lot of people tell me, hey, we were doing great. We were right there with Morgan and Morgan and Dan Newland. And all of a sudden, we've fallen out of the top 3 and we just can't get back in the LSAs. So I did a whole webinar called Help I've Fallen and I Can't Get Back Up. But I would recommend that this is a perfect time to give us a call at 10 Golden Rules, because we've helped at least a dozen firms who've completely fallen out of the top 3, and we've helped them get back up in the game and get their share of those leads. So if Google has turned sour on you and you're not getting any results in the LSAs, we've got some strategies to reboot your campaign and get you back in the top 3. So this is the LSA section, and now we're going to talk about pay-per-click and then move on to conversion. So without further ado, let's talk about the paid Google ads, or pay-per-click, or what my friend Sherry used to call pay-per-click. She thought it was like PAPER, like a piece of paper, like pay-per-click, but no, this is pay-per-click. And so these are the old Google ads. We used to call them the right-hand side ads. And I'm sure if you're watching this, I don't need to explain this to you. But there used to be, the SEO used to be on the left and the pay-per-click was on the right. But people call it pay-per-click or PPC. Now, I showed you a campaign earlier, but let's break this down a little bit. So this campaign was, the ads for this client were shown 14,000 times. And this is actually current, but this campaign was just named May 2022. But this is current data. They got 2,400 clicks. So the click-through rate, the next thing, very important, is 16.65%. So that's really fantastic. Like if your ads are getting 16% click-through rate, that's really, really great. And that means we've done a lot of ad testing. We're buying the right keywords. We're targeting the right people and the right prospects. Now, this is very enviable. And I know a lot of you in the bigger markets are saying, there's no way you can get clicks for $1.24, but this is a relatively small market in the Midwest, and we're doing great. So we spent $3,000. We got 2,400 clicks. And so that's $1.24 cost per click and a conversion. So here's the basic magic that you need to know. Conversions is all about calls. We want as many calls as we can get. I talked a lot about that today. If you can get someone to click to call, and there's a lot of click to call options on pay-per-click. Can I see it here when I go back? This does not have a click to call option, but a lot of times there's a click to call that looks like this on the pay-per-click ads, and on a mobile phone for sure. So conversion is calls, forms. They go to your website and they fill out a form, or chats. And I've talked about chats. And I'll talk a little bit more about chats, but you want to offer everyone all 3 options when they come to your website, right? Like obviously you want them to call, you want the phone number prominent. We talked about that. You want the clicks and you want the calls. And then the conversion rate. So this is the percentage of people who clicked. So the conversion rate is the clicks to people who signed up, either called, form, or chat. And then the cost of a conversion, $42. Again, extremely enviable. A lot of markets, it's going to be $200, $250 to get a lead. And then if you're lucky and you're good and your intake's on point, you're answering the phone, you're going to get a high conversion percentage, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. So, these guys are able to sign clients at $300, $400, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. If you're in a bigger market, it's a little more competitive. Those leads are coming in at $200 or even $300. You're going to, you multiply that by 5, because 1 in 5, 1 in 6 is going to convert. So that's your cost per conversion. Now, every campaign, everything you look at in PPC, you should be looking with your agency or your manager of your pay-per-click campaign, or if you're doing it yourself, you should be looking at the cost per conversion. So for this client, we've got a bunch of different testing going on. We've got auto accident lawyers keywords, auto accident attorney keywords, car accident attorney. car accident test keywords. The ad's not misspelled, just the name of the campaign, car accident lawyer. And then we get all of the same information. So we know what percentage of the budget went to which part of the campaign, what the conversion was, and the important thing is the cost per conversion. As I mentioned, that is the magic number in these campaigns. And that's what you should be drilling down on with your agency. How did the ad groups work? How did the keywords work? What's the best performing keyword that gets a low cost per conversion? It gets me a sign up. It gets me an opportunity to sell a client. It gets me a lead. It gets me either a call, a form, or a chat, and it's the lowest cost in my expenditure. Here we even blocked out some of the ads, but these are different ad copy. Okay, and again, the same thing is what matters. This is how many times the ad was shown. This is how many clicks it got, the click-through rate. You see, it's pretty different. This ad, it's basically similar setup, but this ad got 22% click-through rate. This one got 15% click-through rate. And this one got 4 conversions and they only cost $9. This one got 8 conversions, they cost $32. So this ad copy, this particular combination of copy, that's going to be different in all your campaigns, and you're going to want to look at this, on a fairly macro level. 4 and 2 conversions is not enough to really make a decision on ad copy. But you should be doing this on a regular basis. And a lot of times we see campaigns that don't even have any ad testing. They've got one ad. But, I mentioned I worked in direct mail earlier in my career. When you work in direct mail, a lot of times you test like the red envelope versus the green envelope. And the one that works better, like let's say the red envelope works better. Next month, you test a red envelope versus an orange envelope, because a different envelope color is going to get opened by more people. More people are going to, call you or fill out the form and purchase your product from the direct mail. So think of ad testing to be like your envelope testing or your copy testing in direct mail. You're testing different ad copy, and we see here radically different results because, think of this. This ad gets me a lead at 1/3 the cost of this ad. So that means I can either spend 1/3 less money for the same results, or I can get 3 times more leads for the same results. So what you want to do on a regular basis is write another ad that looks like this ad and test that variant. And maybe if this is now we're going to, if we scroll, this is the top of the screen. If we scroll down, we're going to see ad copy that didn't get any conversions or cost $300 to get a conversion. So typically what we're going to do is get rid of that ad copy that didn't perform, and we're going to write 2 or 3 different ads that look like this. Free case consultations, free initial consultation. We hit that twice. This is the name of the firm blocked out. Searching for a car accident attorney near me. Blank firm is near you and will help you in a car accident. Fight your case with firm free case consultations. So you see there's a lot of variants to that ad that are working really, really well. Now, super quick, how do we set it up? How do we do pay-per-click? You just go to ads.google.com. You're going to create your account. You can set your budget. You can pick your locations. And this is the same for LSAs, by the way. You can be super specific. And I always counsel you want to have different ad groups. Like, remember we had 5 or 6 different ad groups that I showed you the data on a minute ago. So you want like all, if you're this setup, I remember was for a big firm that had multiple practice areas. So you want to have all your car accident keywords in one ad group. Then you're going to have your car accident ads, and then you're going to have your car accident landing page. So it's a very clean and consistent experience for the consumer. This is a teeny bit confusing. It's really for the professionals these days, but there's different type of keyword setup. So like a broad match would be, in this example, women's hats or lawyer, but you don't want to be advertising for the keyword lawyer. Like you want to be very specific. Like we're, consultative family law attorneys for divorce. Like you be very, very specific, because you don't want everyone who's thinking of a divorce calling you. You want only people who want consultative divorce attorneys, right? So if you have divorce attorney, that would be the example of broad match, or in this case, women's hats. Google's going to include all kinds of different things, anything that includes ladies' hats or women's hats. But if you're very, very specific and you've got exact match and you put these brackets around it, you'll only see women's hats, you'll only see women's hats for the most part. Google might put ladies' hats, but really they're going to be very, very close. So again, this is really for the professional, but a good question to ask your agency. If your results aren't that great, you're disappointed. What kind of phrase matching are you using? And if they don't even know what that means, you've got the wrong agency. I promise you that. The other thing that's very important is you've got to put negative match. So example, it would be baseball hats, right? Like you're selling women's hats. You don't want anyone who searches the term baseball hats. So you're going to put negative keywords in there. They're going to block out phrases that you don't want to appear. Again, the anatomy of an ad, got a headline. So you can write different headlines. And some of the ads we saw earlier were actually testing that Google's going to do in an automated manner. So a lot of times what you do now is you just write these different parts to the ad, and then Google's going to show it randomly, and the AI is going to give you the best result. This is called a call extension. These are site links extensions, local extension. So again, Google is very complex today. But if you want to ask your agency if they know what they're doing, ask them, do they use call extensions? Do they use site link extensions? Do they use local extensions? And if there's a blank look on their face, again, you probably don't have the most sophisticated pay-per-click agency. I spoke earlier about landing pages. So in this example, my friend Jerry Parker Wakeman, they handle about 40 different practice areas. They're very big in mass torts. They're very big in single incident. But for the auto accident, you would want to go to the auto accident landing page. And then this would be the home page. So obviously looks very, very different. So we talked about the anatomy of the ad, the landing pages. And this is like, for example, a nursing home landing page. And very important, you have to have a thank you page. So if somebody fills out the form on this page, I actually would like to test this, move this form to the bottom if they still had this style of landing page. But you want to have, like I said earlier, you want to have the phone number very prominent. Show you again in a minute. And then it's once they fill out the form or do a chat or something, you want to have thank you. So the thank you page, particularly for the form fills, tells Google, okay, they filled out the form and then they went to a new page called the thank you page. So it's very helpful for the consumer because they know, okay, we received your information, we're going to call you back. And it's also very helpful for your Google tracking because now we know for sure that they visited a second page, which was the thank you page. They completed the form. Got to make sure your page works really, really well and responsive in mobile. So make sure your website works well in mobile. And I talked earlier about tracking the cost and the conversions. But the most important thing is the cost per conversion, right? So in this campaign, we spent $26,000. We had 130 conversions. So this is a much bigger, more competitive market, right? Earlier, we saw like $43 conversions. In this market, it costs $200 to get a phone call, a chat, or a form. Those are the critical things. And then again, this is, I mentioned this earlier, typically phone calls will convert at 24%. So we use call tracking where it records the calls and we can hear the information. We can hear those calls. And at the agency at 10 Golden Rules, we give feedback to our clients based on how great a job the intake team is doing with those calls. But again, as I said, typically phone calls will convert as high as 24%. So 1 in 4 calls is going to convert to a client. Whereas if somebody goes to your website, they clicked your website, well, maybe 5% of people will fill out the form. And maybe 2% of those people will pick up the phone when you call them. So that's why you want phone calls versus form fills. Now, here's an example. Here's Norris Injury Attorneys, and they've got the chat on the website. And I talked about that earlier. And just my 2 cents worth on chat. A lot of people say to me, well, I never use the chat box. Well, that might be true. But I think there's been a big change in the last 3 or 4 years where 4 or 5 years ago, when you did the yes, I want to chat with someone, you might have waited 3 or 4 minutes and you'd hear crickets and they didn't get back to you. Or you did the chat, you were asking a question about a website, and they'd send you a link to the same page you're already on. Like the chat was useless, but today the chat is very advanced. As I mentioned, if you go with intake or Juvo leads, the consumer is going to have a great experience. And what I find is your conversion, the percentage of people who go to your website or go to your landing page and convert is going to go up significantly. Again, I have a theory on that. You notice I've got a lot of theories. So my theory is that, let's say you're homeschooling your kids, or let's say you're doing research at work. I often use the example, one of our clients got a great case, and the woman who called that was not injured in the accident. It was her aunt who was injured in the accident. So think of the person who's just doing research for somebody else, for a parent, a friend, a relative, right? There's no way they're going to call you because, again, she's sitting at work. She shouldn't be, hopefully she's on lunch or break, and she's researching law firms for her aunt. She's not going to call you. She's at work. She's surrounded by coworkers. There's zero chance she's going to call you. Now, she might write down the number and give it to her aunt later, or her mom, if it's her mom's sister who's injured. But there's no way she's going to call you. And there's also zero chance she's going to fill out a form on your website. Again, it's not her case. She's emotionally involved, but she's not literally involved. And she's not going to be involved in calling the law firm. She's only the researcher in this case. So that's where chat has a tremendous opportunity. Someone who's, standing in line at a bank or at work, they'll chat, they'll ask you some questions and some clarifications. Hey, do you handle car accident cases? My aunt was injured, can you help her out? Is this the kind of case you take? Does she need to come in and see you? She's in the hospital right now. Whatever questions they have, they'll ask those questions by chat in like an anonymous forum. And so that's where 10 to 20% more cases are going to come in if you add the chat box. The chat has a video on it now with Intaker and Juvo leads. And so I definitely recommend talking to those guys. And a couple of advanced strategies. Number one is the map extension. So you can actually run an ad now in the map extensions. And you can learn more at this blog post that we wrote. What happened? I think I'm still good, right? Somehow we went small screen here, but I'll just stick with that. So remarketing. So a lot of times you will go to a website, and in this case, it's my friend Scott Silver's website, and you go to visit that website. He's a securities arbitrator. We did a lot of work with Scott, and you don't sign up. So you don't call, you don't do a chat, and you don't fill out a form. Then later in the day, you're checking on your stocks, and there it is, Silver Law Group. That is called remarketing. And they don't know who you are necessarily, although there's some pretty advanced systems these days, but they, in 9 times out of 10, they're looking at your computer's unique identifier number. And so when your computer shows up on a website that is participating in a remarketing advertising program, they're going to show your ad instead of showing a generic like credit card ad, because this has a much higher likelihood of clicking. Like if you were a part of a stock fraud, or you think you could sue your broker or brokerage, and maybe you got distracted when you were on Scott's site, but then you see his banner, there's a high likelihood you're gonna click on that. So remarketing is a very sophisticated advanced strategy that should be part of your pay-per-click campaign. And then I mentioned a beautiful new site that we did for Jeff McDonald, and we made the phone number really prominent, and we made the call, click to call, the call to action. The before had a really big form. The after is focused on calls, and we see the fantastic improvement in phone calls. And then the last thing I'm going to talk a little bit about is the Google AI overviews. Now, this is not a paid service, but I just want everybody to know, and we're going to be doing another whole webinar on this topic. We've covered this a couple times in different webinars, including the 6 parts of Google. It was the most recent webinar, if you want to go deep on this. But basically what we see here is Google is giving us an answer like ChatGPT. They're calling it AI overview. And there's a little button there that says show more. And all of these links on the side are links to website that Google used to compile this answer. So like previously, Google just had links to websites to answer questions. Now Google's using a feature like ChatGPT, and they're giving you the answer. So why do they do that? Well, I think number one, they got to compete with ChatGPT. So Google's got to be, and I've started using Gemini all the time now because I'm like, I'm on Google. I know I can get a good answer. I don't need to open another window and go to ChatGPT and maybe log in and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people are going to realize, hey, ChatGPT was great, but Gemini is just as good. And they link to the websites if I want more information. Now, for us as advertising marketers, this is a great opportunity because there's actual links to our website. Here's my friend Jeff McDonald again. This is our first client that we got one of these links for. And if you search, can you get laid off while on light duty, it links to Jeff's page. So these are really good for the type of questions that are at the top of the funnel, like where we're going to ask Siri a question like, what happens if I get hit by an Uber? So one of the reasons why Jeff is ranking is he's probably answered about 200 questions now, where we put the videos on YouTube. The video goes on a blog on his website. We've got links to, we've got the video in social media, in his newsletter, and in his Google Maps. So we're answering questions. Here's another page on his site where we're covering topics comprehensively with detailed explanations and real examples. The frequently asked questions is really, really good for this. And then you've got to have links where you're seen as an authority. So you've got to have high important websites like USA Today, which link to your website. You've got to be a part of the community, seems to help with these AI results, community activity, and local links, these local community groups linking to you. And then the final thing that helps with the AIs is being a known entity, being seen as an expert. And so these are good examples from 10 Golden Rules, where we've done these videos. This one's been viewed 87,000 times. We have 300,000 views on our videos on our YouTube channel. Google owns YouTube. So 10 Golden Rules is seen as an expert by Google in the algorithm on topics like technology for attorneys, local search for attorneys, masterminds for attorneys. Here's Ed Kirk from Supio. I talked about AI for attorneys. Here's Justin Lovely talking about AI for attorneys on my podcast. So you can see our podcast on the YouTube channel as well, if you like to watch the interviews. And then we've been published in articles like this is on the PILMA magazine. I published an article for the Personal Injury Lawyers Mastermind Association. And then we publish on a regular basis content, thought leadership content. So we're interviewing experts. We're doing these webinars, thought leadership content. We're interviewing experts, putting out podcasts, and I'm appearing on podcasts consciously and writing articles for publications so that we're a known entity. That's very, very important for Google search, but in particular for this AI search. All right, so that brings us to the end of the slides. I'm going to just hop over here for 1 sec to give you guys the link to the playbook. Where is my playbook? Handbook, sorry, we called it a handbook this time. There we go. I'm going to throw that up, and then I'm going to see if we have any questions. So you can ask questions in the chat, or you can, I see a couple there already. All right. And we're also live on LinkedIn. So hello, LinkedIn. I apologize, I didn't say hi earlier. So Alyssa's going to grab the LinkedIn chats for me. So John asked, if calls convert better, should we have a form on the site? And I think I covered that one in pretty good detail. Yes, you should have a form on the site, but in my opinion, the form should be at the bottom of the page, and it should be on the contact us. So if people want to, if that's what they like to do, they can do that. I see Jimmy raised a hand, so you can ask a question in the chat or in the Q&A. So next question, Tony Arnona. I apologize if I didn't get that quite right. Is there a way to separate campaigns on LSA, family law versus personal injury for tracking purposes? Yes, there is a way. My team can help answer that question more technically, but I believe we can set up different LSAs. Now you can have different, obviously you can have different practice areas, but I think what we do is we actually set up a different LSA account or a sub account for very different practice areas like that. And that's very common. Like a lot of times, I guess if most of the audience is lawyers, a lot of times a couple lawyers go to law school together, and one of you decides to do PI and one of you decides to do family law, but you want to join a firm together so that your HR and your office management and your rent can be shared. So a lot of times firms have slightly less logically aligned practice areas, and so you can set those up separately. So again, if you can't figure it out in terms of setting it up, Tony, just please go to 10goldenrules.com, do our intaker chat, and we'll hop on a call and we'll help you out. By the way, great way to get in touch with me. If you ever have a question, feel free to go to 10goldenrules.com, or LinkedIn is great. Those LinkedIns really stand out for me if you have any questions. Okay, next question from Kevin Tully. What strategies do you have for LSA accounts that have lost their momentum? Well, that's a great one. And I talked about that in the Help I've Fallen and I Can't Get Back Up webinar. So I guess there's a number, I don't know if there's, I guess I would call it the strategy. I'm trying to differentiate in my head strategies and tactics. So a strategy is an approach, a tactic is what you actually do, right? So the first strategy would be to make a significant amount of changes on the account and then put your hands in jail and don't touch the account for 3 or 4 weeks. Because one thing that doesn't work, it seems like it doesn't work, is to change the bid one day and then change the geography one day and change the practice areas. And, it's not like pay-per-click where it responds if you change a bunch of things. It's an AI, artificial intelligence algorithm. It seems to like stability, right? And so do all the other things we talked about earlier first, right? Like make sure you're answering the phones, make sure you're designating the leads, make sure you're getting 1 to 2 new reviews per week. Do all the things we talked about in the secret algorithm, or you can find here in this download that I've got on the screen in the hottest trends. We have the steps in the secret algorithm. Now, if that doesn't work and you've been trying everything, it seems, for the last 2 or 3 months, and you're just not showing up, the next thing is to do a relatively big reset. So what you would do is you could even like completely reset the account. So you'd close the LSA, you'd open a new LSA account, connect it to your Google Maps. So LSAs are connected to your Google Maps. Set everything up again, maybe set up a different credit card and just kick it off all over again. And sometimes a lot of times Google will show a new account. Sorry, I'm just going to get a sip of water. A lot of times Google will show LSAs and you'll get a lot of traction on a new account. We've seen as many as 50 or 60 cases in the first 6 months on accounts. And then if you do really well, Google will continue the volume. If you fall off, Google might drop you out. Like if you're not answering the phone, you're not getting reviews, you're not designating your leads. So resetting can work. It's ostensibly to be a new account. Another thing you can do is you can do an open up strategy. So you're basically going to open it up completely. You're going to take every kind of legal case, or you're going to broaden your categories. Like say you were just trying to get motorcycle accidents. You're going to open it up for slip and falls and car accidents and truck accidents and dog bites, like take all the PI stuff. So sometimes when you open it up or open it up just to lawyer leads, you're going to want to refer out those cases that you don't take. But what happens is like a faucet. Once you get the faucet flowing, then you can turn it down a little bit, take out the general legal leads, and then maybe the cases you want will keep coming in. And then there's some other reset strategies we've done, new credit card, new geographies. So basically what you're going to do is make a significant amount of changes in the account. Then again, sit back for 2 or 3, 4 weeks, and hopefully the LSAs will respond. So hopefully that helps. Question from Jimmy Mesrano. Jimmy, thanks for being here. Does the means of contact correlate with higher case value? Example, do phone calls typically associated with higher case values versus other contact methods? That's a good question. And I got to be honest, I've never really tried to figure that out. I think one thing I could tell you, though, is referrals generally correlate with higher case values. So as much as I hate to admit it, we are the top. Like, you've got to do the ground game. I mentioned Charlie Mann's $500,000 referral engine. You've got to do a great job with referring attorneys. You've got to do a great job with referring medical practitioners if you're in PI, accountants if you're an estate attorney. And then typically the Google stuff is a top up. And so a lot of times you'll find that the case values will be slightly smaller. Like, God forbid, if you're dealing with a death case in personal injury, a lot of times those families, the first thing they have to worry about is not hiring an attorney. The first thing they have to worry about is their loved one, funerals, families, arrangements, probate, on and on and on. And then they're already dealing with lawyers, and the lawyer might advise them, or they know, hey, there's no way my loved one should have been killed. They were not at fault in this accident. And then they're going to hire an attorney. So that's the kind of example where a lot of times those cases are referred because they're already dealing with attorneys, or they're dealing with a lot of professionals in the case of a very serious death case or a serious injury case. So I would say, get your ground game settled. And then, a lot of things we do to support referrals are newsletters, good basic blocking and tackling. Every single business should have a newsletter. Like, when I send out my newsletter, I get a couple calls. Hey, Jay, we've been planning to redo our website. I've been meaning to call you. Now, maybe they were or they weren't, but I reminded them with the newsletter. Or I'll get booked for a podcast or a speaking opportunity or something like that. So sending out your newsletter reminds all the referring attorneys who are on your list that you're a good person to refer. Like, they might not have thought of you for 6 months, but they read your newsletter, and a friend of theirs or one of their clients gets injured. Same thing with your past clients. So sending out your newsletter and having a regular cadence of social media is very, very valuable for that. I think I covered that one. Thank you, guys. I got a ton of questions here. Good question from Jeff. Does having multiple landing pages for PPC campaigns confuse Google? I think it actually helps Google. Like, if you have a good campaign set up, and I talked about consistency. If you've got all your, let me use a different category. Let's go back to my friend Scott Silver. He's in securities. He sues bad brokers and brokerages. So, like, let's say you had, actually, one thing we used to do with Scott is we would set up a very specific campaign for a very specific topic. So there was a bad broker and brokerage house that ripped off a bunch of seniors and spent their money and did like multiple trades because they made commissions on the trades, and they did a terrible job on the trades. So we set up a campaign just in that part of South Carolina. We had the name of the broker and the brokerage in the campaign. We had specific ads about that broker and brokerage and hiring an attorney. And we had specific landing pages about the FINRA suspensions. The FINRA is the organization that suspended these bad brokers. We had a specific landing page with all the information and what they could do and how to contact the law firm and how we could help. So I think when you send positive signals to Google and to consumers, and the consumers take action on those signals, it's positive, and Google's gonna show you more in the campaigns. So excuse me. So that's a really good example where multiple landing pages works better for the consumer, works better for Google. Therefore, it's gonna work better for the campaign. All right, where are we here? We got about a minute or two left for the hour, so I'm gonna find one more really good question. Mary asked, which advertising has better ROI? Well, that's a $1 million question, right? But I think the answer you saw in this presentation, which is test, and measure, right? Because, I can't tell you, like in most markets, the LSAs, the Google screens, are better than the pay-per-click for both clicks, cost per lead, and conversions. Because for the most part, we're able to get phone calls. We're only paying for the good calls. Like Google's pretty much going to honor if it's like a sales call or something like that. And pay-per-click doesn't work that way. And as I said, in the LSAs, you're getting phone calls as opposed to pay-per-click. If you can get phone calls and pay-per-click, but a lot of the clicks, they literally click and go to your website, and then only a small portion of the people are going to call you who actually clicked, right? So the LSAs generally are more cost effective. You get more leads, you get more phone calls, and therefore the LSAs have better ROI, better return on investment for your ad dollars. So I'm going to just see if there's any other questions. I'm going to double back to TGR Live. If you're seeing this in the next couple weeks, definitely want you to join us at the beautiful Opal Grand Hotel and Resort on it's right at Atlantic. If you know Delray Beach and you know South Florida, there's a really cool street, Atlantic, with a bunch of restaurants. So it's right at Atlantic, right at the ocean. Here you can actually see the ocean from the Opal Grand, and we'll upgrade you to VIP if you go to 10goldenrules.com/TGRlive-golden. So thank you all for being here. If you're watching this sometime in the future, please give me I'd love a 5-star YouTube review, or if you're listening to the podcast, really appreciate an iTunes, a 5-star iTunes review, or if you're on Podify or Podbean or Spotify. Thank you all for being here. And next month, we'll see you on the TGR webinar.